Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Small Field Drafts with me, MP. Nice to see you again. We're in the queue right now for a $3 three-person draft on Underdog. And if you don't know, why should you play these $3 three-person drafts? Well, it's because they're fast. They take about 10 minutes. They're fun. You only have to choose between the top 50 best players. So you're not thinking about, do I have to pick between a guy like Allen Robinson or Robert Woods as my wide receiver 8 or 9 in my league. There's not 10,000 strategic things that you need to remember in order to get a little bit of an advantage over your opponents. And also, perhaps the biggest one, people in this format go absolutely crazy. They do some of the wildest things that I've ever seen. I was drafting last night. I couldn't sleep. It was probably like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I got in a few of these $3 best ball drafts. And let me tell you, some of the things that people were doing was blowing my mind. In terms of, I don't know what they were thinking in terms of what strategy they were following. That kind of leads me to one of the first tips I wanted to bring to you today is let your opponents be the ones to make mistakes. Because there's only 3 people here. If one of your opponents goes absolutely crazy, drafts something like 4 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends and doesn't take their first wide receiver until like round 5, well, you've now got a 50-50 shot of winning this game because that person pretty much took themselves out of the running. All right, now we're on the clock here at 1-3. We just took Christian McCaffrey, who is my 101. And we have a choice to make. Do we want a wide receiver or do we want Travis Kelce and take that positional advantage? I have been taking Kelce here a little bit more just because sometimes Cooper Kupp is making it back to me. Sometimes people go a little bit crazy. And I do like Cooper Kupp more than Tyreek Hill, although I probably should be throwing him in every now and then. But let's do it. Let's get Travis Kelce. Let's get the number 1 tight end by far. And Christian McCaffrey, the number 1 running back by far. We're starting out well. We're making our opponents pick the hard choices, right? We just want to do a couple simple things and let them go wild. One thing I see people doing, of course, is taking 3 of the top 3 quarterbacks in a row, picks like in round 7, 8, 9, and then taking a 4th quarterback. All right, it's back to us. Time to stop yapping for a second. Austin Eckler, of course, we know he's my number 2 running back on the board. That brings me to another one of my tips is have a stand. Make stands on players. Say Austin Eckler is your number 2, even though he's RB3 ranked in this format. I think he's going to have a better shot at finishing finishing as that number 1 running back over Bijan Robinson, but don't go crazy. Don't say, you know what? I don't like Austin Eckler here, but you know who I really like? Ramondre Stevenson. I'm going to take him here with my 2nd or 3rd pick. All right, so we've got 2 of the top 2 running backs, in my opinion. We've got a number 1 tight end, Travis Kelce. We need to start hammering these wide receivers. Hopefully between now and our next pick, some of our league mates start to get a little gun shy. I feel like they need to start taking quarterbacks. I don't want them to take Mark Andrews quite yet because while I do have Travis Kelce, I often think Mark Andrews is undervalued in these drafts, again, because we want to make sure we're starring him. These ADPs are not based on 3-person drafts. They're only based on 12-person drafts, so you can't hardly find Mark Andrews' name in the queue here. We want to make sure we have him front and center. All right, we didn't get what we wanted in terms of pretty much all all wide receivers have gone off the board here. So what are we going to do? Let's take a look at the board here. Our opponents have both taken 4 wide receivers and 5 wide receivers respectively, and only 1 running back. That is leaving us some value at running back in Jonathan Taylor, but he's not a guy I love to bet on. We're at pick 15. It's probably not the right time to be taking Mark Andrews. We want to push that a little bit. We need wide receivers, so we'll take just the top wide receiver available in Jalen Waddle because Miami's offense is so concentrated. Even though he's the number 2 guy there, he can blow up on any given week. He's getting like a 25% target share or something, and they are quite explosive. Now, our fellow drafters don't have many running backs between them. So the real question is, do we take a guy like Patrick Mahomes as a QB1 to pair with our Travis Kelce? That's the way I'm leaning right now. Do we let our league mates get the value on these running backs here? I think so. I don't think we need to play bully ball and say we're going to take the top 5 running backs off the board just so you can't have them. I want Patrick Mahomes here. He was, I believe, the number 1 quarterback in overall scoring last year. I do think pairing him with Travis Kelce is great. It raises our weekly ceiling. And if all else fails between our running backs and our wide receivers, if Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce can kind of have the same season that they did last year, we don't have to have all of that much in order to have a decent chance at winning this, not tournament, but winning this match between ourselves and our opponents. See what kind of value we get coming back to us. One wide receiver, one quarterback. Okay, so they're not going crazy. One wide receiver, one running back, and they're not going crazy on quarterback, which is one of the things I've been seeing in these three-person drafts. People go just absolutely wild when taking quarterbacks. Now, one of my things is to never really take 2 or 3 of the top 3 quarterbacks. I'm pretty sure it's limiting your total upside because Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, I'm pretty sure they have a similar chance at finishing as a QB1, and you're expecting them not really to Patrick Mahomes to have a huge spike week one week and then Jalen Hurts to have a huge spike week the next week. They're pretty much going to sit right there at 1 and 2. You're not going to get too much value taking both of them. Definitely not if you're taking all 3 of them. All right, what are we going to do right now? I definitely love the value we're getting on Mark Andrews. I think this is the sweet spot of when you need to take him. Even though we have Travis Kelce, we are dominating our opponents at tight end. Now, we don't have very many wide receivers. We have 2 of the top 11 in this format, but a guy like Nick Chubb, I also love because I do think he has a path to scoring the most touchdowns in the league. I think he's got a good shot at being the rushing leader, and maybe he even catches a few more passes. I think Cleveland's going to be a great offense overall. The only question is, T. Higgins, is he going to do well enough? I do think T. Higgins is the last of that next wide receiver tier. Nick Chubb I like, but I also like Tony Pollard. Derrick Henry's a guy I can get behind, so we definitely need the wide receiver value. We definitely need the wide receiver depth because we're going to be starting minimum 3 wide receivers on a weekly basis and minimum 2 running backs on a weekly basis. We're going to need a little bit more wide receiver depth throughout the season because on average, we're going to be starting 1 more wide receiver every week. Now, these quarterbacks, you don't often see them falling this far in these 3-person drafts. That's interesting, and it's starting to make me feel like maybe I need to take one, although Vic here, he already has a quarterback. Who the hell did he grab that he already has a quarterback, but he doesn't need one? Oh, he was, okay, so he just went back-to-back, Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. That makes me happy to see that. We're going to definitely get one of the next tier of these running backs, perhaps even 2. If we get 2 of these next 3 guys, we can think about not taking any more running backs and just trying to get a lot of depth at wide receiver. We don't need any more tight ends at all. Guys like DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel, and Amari Cooper, they're just in this meh tier for me. I think we're just going to take the value on Tony Pollard right now. I think the reports recently that they're going to sign a guy like Zeke later on in the offseason have started to make people fearful of clicking his name in this format. But even with Zeke there, yeah, he's probably going to get those goal line short yardage situations, but we're just hoping on Tony Pollard to be explosive, to catch some passes, and maybe getting a couple more touchdowns than he did last year. Between Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, DK, and Metcalf, the only other person I'm really considering is Lamar Jackson, but we already have Patrick Mahomes. Let's just take Derrick Henry. Let's just take the best players on the board at these positions where we're going to need the most players. Obviously, Lamar, you're going to say he's better than Derrick Henry. He's going to score more points than Derrick Henry or Tony Pollard. But we already have Patrick Mahomes. And while I do like the idea of having Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson as like this 1-2 punch where Patrick Mahomes, he's just punching you in the mouth every single week with that 22, 24 points per game. And then all of a sudden Lamar Jackson comes in with this uppercut to knock you out if he posts like a 30, 40 point game, if he busts off a couple of 50, 60 yard rushing touchdowns, if they have a much better vertical passing game than they have in years prior. So we're going to be open to taking him if he comes back to us in the next round. Obviously, none of these wide receivers have gone off the board. They are still here, and we still like them. So we're going to have probably our pick of the litter. The only question as well we have to keep our eye on is tight end. Maybe the other 2 guys in this draft think we've taken the top 2 tight ends. They can just push tight end. They know I'm definitely not going to take that many. But I want to punish them. I'm already punishing them by having Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, and I'm definitely hurting at a place like wide receiver. I think we definitely need to be taking at least 1 wide receiver here. So who do I like between Calvin Ridley and Deebo Samuel? Probably Deebo Samuel. Calvin Ridley, I've taken him a few times recently, and I'm starting to get a little skittish on Jacksonville's offense as a whole. Calvin Ridley hasn't played in 2 years. Is he even better than Christian Kirk? Everybody's banking on Jacksonville to take this huge step forward, but that's more projection than anything. We haven't seen it yet. The only other question is, do we take Lamar Jackson here or do we take Calvin Ridley? Now, I think we go Calvin Ridley because we need the wide receivers. And the only reason why, because Lamar Jackson, of course, does pair with our Mark Andrews. And so we'd have 2 quarterback tight end pairings. And I don't necessarily hate that because if they blow up, they're probably going to have big weeks for both of us. But the reason I didn't feel like I had to take Lamar Jackson there is because Justin Fields is still on the board. Justin Fields, I think, would fill that same need, that same uppercut, haymaker, right? Patrick Mahomes, he's steady, beating down our opponents with that #1 overall quarterback season. But then these 2 rushing quarterbacks can have these huge, monstrous weeks. If they just score a couple of rushing touchdowns, if they break off these huge runs like Justin Fields was doing last year, that can really help elevate our weekly performance. Okay, and the rest of the guys in this draft, I guess they feel like, wow, my sleeper's here in the 2 spot. He's really pushing quarterback. You don't often see that. People go quarterback crazy a lot. I'm not usually the one to take a quarterback early. Patrick Mahomes at 16, it's not really early, but that's about where he goes. And the other 2 guys, I got good value on Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. This guy's just waiting, pushing it, taking these running backs, these round 3, 4 running backs that you find in the 12-team leagues, which I don't hate. Okay, there he goes. My sleepers took Lamar Jackson. That's fine because we have Justin Fields here. Now, this is where I'm starting to think we're going to definitely grab Justin Fields. He doesn't have the same bye week as Patrick Mahomes, so we're good there. We won't need any more quarterbacks. As I said before, we can think about not taking any more running backs, although I'll probably grab 1 more just to have enough depth to get through the grind of the season. This is where I'm thinking about taking another tight end, a 3rd tight end, even though I already have the top 2, because these guys are pushing tight end. I want to make them pay. I don't want them to get great value on these guys who can have big spike weeks in TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, and Kyle Pitts. Now, the only question is who? Who do I take? I don't have any Minnesota, so one of the things I'm thinking of is George Kittle. Because I do have Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, I'm banking on San Francisco's offense being very good. And if San Francisco's offense is very good, George Kittle is going to have weeks where he is the guy. And we know Brock Purdy has the inside track to being their starting quarterback. So let's just do it. Let's get the benefit of George Kittle's spike weeks while taking away the advantage that he would give to one of our opponents. Okay, my sleepers is demonstrating one of the things that I said earlier. Let your opponents make the mistakes. He drafted Darren Waller while TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts, and Dallas Goedert were still on the board. Darren Waller is a guy you can easily get in the last pick of every single 3-person draft. And for some reason, my sleepers felt like he had to take him. Let's see, my sleepers. Who do you got? Why are you taking Darren Waller? New York Giants. You don't have Daniel Jones, so it's not like you're saying he's going to stack with Daniel Jones and it's going to raise my weekly ceiling. What the hell? How could you say in a million years that Darren Waller is going to be a better tight end than TJ Hawkinson? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Let your opponents make the mistakes. In these 3-person formats, you have no idea who's drafting with you. David Njoku. He took Darren Waller and David Njoku back to back. What are you doing? This is why you play 3-person best ball, is because there's no reason that you can give me. There's no justification for taking back-to-back tight ends who are sitting behind Hawkinson, Pitts, and Goddard. That is crazy. Oh my God. Okay, so we probably don't need another tight end right now, although I'm considering it. They're screwing themselves. I don't need to screw them. They're screwing themselves. We need wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins is a guy we've been tracking his ADP. It's been shooting up ever since he got cut from the Cardinals, and he's been favored to land between all the kinds of crazy places, right? Kansas City, Buffalo, Dallas, Cleveland. Then there was rumors that he was going to be landing in Houston, and then now he's taking trips to Tennessee. If he goes to Tennessee, we hate that. We don't want that at all. So I'm just going to take another wide receiver here in Keenan Allen, a guy who, while he's old, he's not a big downfield threat. He's more of like a PPR guy, and this is a half-point PPR format. He is probably the best wide receiver on that team. I do like the Los Angeles Chargers and betting on them this year to be a very good offense. Brandon Staley, I think, is just adult, and even though he's supposed to be this defensive guru, I don't think their defense the last 2 years hasn't been very good at all. They've had a lot of injuries, but if their defense isn't that great and they have to push their offense in the back half of games when they're down, we've already got Austin Eckler too, so we're already banking on the Chargers being a top tier offense. All right, Kyle Pitts went off the board. I cannot believe that TJ Hawkinson is going to fall to like pick 50 or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes him here. He only took Pitts, so we kind of let him get away if he takes Hawkinson here and getting 2 of the top 5 guys in the last couple rounds. And we don't love that, but we just can't waste probably any more capital on tight end. Yeah, he did take Hawkinson and Pitts back-to-back. That's great value for him. There's nothing more we could have done, right? My sleepers here, he screwed himself so hard that he stopped us from being able to screw Vic. Like, I wanted to screw the both of them by splitting up those top-tier tight ends. All right, Deshaun Watson, okay. I do think Justin Herbert deserves to go ahead of Deshaun Watson. How many picks we have left? We're on our last 2 picks here. We only have 4 running backs. We have 7 wide receivers, so we're probably good there, although we don't have that many we only have 1 top 10 wide receiver, so I do feel like we're going to need some extra depth. DeAndre Hopkins is scary. I have been taking him a lot, so let's get a guy that well, never mind. We timed out on that pick. Wasn't paying attention. That's okay, though. All right, and these last picks, Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, these are both guys that I like. Joe Mixon, I just think right now, there's nobody else there in Cincinnati, and he can have a path to having a top 5 season if that stays the case. Unfortunately, we have 3 week 7 buys, but we have our top 2 guys who are going to be performing for us to fill into those 2 running back spots. Did time out there on DeAndre Hopkins. I've been getting him a lot. I don't hate the pick necessarily. I just wanted to diversify a little bit by grabbing another guy, maybe like Drake London. Even though I'm a little bit scared of Atlanta's offense, I do think they're going to have a decent shot at winning the NFC South, so it's not terrible. We have a strong team. This is probably the weakest draft that I've done at wide receiver, so that'll be interesting to see how I like it when I compare it to the other guys. If this draft ends without Dallas Goedert being drafted, that'll be absolutely crazy. Who's this guy going to take? He's timing out. We're probably not going to see. We're going to have to refresh the page. Vic, who did he get with his last pick? Okay, let's just do a quick comparison on how we fare against our 2 other opponents. I'm pretty sure one of them, that guy in the 2 hole, I'm pretty sure he's got no shot of winning. But let's just see. Our quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Fields, the perfect 1-2 punch, like I was saying. That's what I want. Running backs, Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, my top 2 running backs that I think have a major chance of scoring that 300-plus point threshold that's really going to push us over the edge at that running back position. Plus, we've got Tony Pollard, an explosive running back on a good offense. Derrick Henry is the guy. He's a freak of nature. Nobody's going to be surprised if he's the rushing title leader again. And Joe Mixon, who kind of sucked last year, but there's nobody else there in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's going to be a great offense with Joe Burrow. He likes to check it down sometimes, so maybe he'll get some work in the passing game. So I'd say we're extremely strong at running back, if not a little bit thin at depth, but these guys are so strong that we don't need that much depth. Wide receiver, this is where we're weakest. A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins. So we got 1 guy in the top 10, 2 guys in like that, 11 to 15 range. So only 3 guys in the top 15. I don't love that. But we did get some of those guys like right after there. Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley. And then Christian Watson, he can blow up on every week. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins. It is what it is. We're obviously weak at wide receiver, but this is our massive strength. Now, it's probably too much capital spent because the thing about tight ends is it's so weird, though. Every week, we could feasibly see Travis Kelce being our tight end scorer, like having the best score every single week. And because our wide receivers are so weak, maybe we even see Mark Andrews and George Kittle get into our flex position every now and then if some of our running backs fall a little flat, as do our wide receivers. But like I was saying, I wanted to really punish our opponents because they were just waiting on tight end. So we have the huge advantage at tight end. Now let's check out Vic, the guy who was drafting last. I want to see who he got. Okay, he got 3 quarterbacks, 2 of them in the top 3. I don't love that. And if you take 2 in the top 3, you definitely don't need to take Joe Burrow. I think that's a big mistake. So I don't think he's outpacing us because he took 2 of the top 3. Again, I'm pretty sure his upside is capped because you can only start max 1 of them per week. So I like to see that. I think this is on our way to giving us a good advantage. Running back, he's got Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Alexander Madison. Obviously, his top tier talent is not as good as ours, in my opinion. He got a lot of these kind of 4, 5, 6 running back guys that I definitely do like. They're just in that part of the draft that I want to be drafting other people. And then Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alexander Madison, you never know, but they could do something this year. So he's decent at running back, although I'd say we have the edge. So I'd say we're equal in value at quarterback. I'd say we're beating him at running back. Here at wide receiver, he's got Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 top 10 wide receivers. He's obviously going to be crushing us. And because of that, he only felt the need to take 6 wide receivers. Now that might be a little thin just because you have to start at least 3, sometimes 4 every week. So he might not just be giving himself that much depth, but these guys here on the top half are so strong that there's not many weeks out of the year where he's probably going to be needing DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin to be filling in. So he's crushing us at wide receiver. I think we're beating him at running back. I think we're even with him at quarterback. And I think think we are crushing him at tight end. Now, he got great value on these two guys. I would have likened probably to screw him a little bit more if that other guy could have taken one of these two away from him. It just is what it is. So me and Vic, we're probably going to be the ones going at it this week or this season. I do think we have a good shot at taking it down, even though we're usually weak at wide receiver, which I like to have a lot of the top 10 wide receivers, but this is half point PPR. So we're really just making on touchdowns. And I think at running back, in tight end especially, we are going to be mopping the floor with his tight ends and running backs. Quarterback, my sleeper is this guy. All right, Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. I don't hate that, although he just took them in a strange order. Running back, Nick Chubb, a guy I love, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, Dameon Pierce, Kenneth Walker. Great. I think that's a great running back room, although I do think we're still beating him because we have the top two, so much top tier talent. I think he's got a great running back room. So we're definitely beating him, in my opinion, at quarterback because Patrick Mahomes is just head and shoulders above Lamar. Running back, we're beating him, but I do like his chances at having outperforming seasons from a lot of these guys. Wide receiver, he's got a big group of them. Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. Okay, he's got 5 top 10 guys. I like to see that. Then Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, Mark Cooper. That's like a perfect wide receiver room. He's got 8 great wide receivers. I think he's really strong there. But only 2 tight ends, and this doesn't make any sense. He screwed himself so badly by just not taking the value that he was getting on Hawkinson, Kittle, Pitts, and those other guys. This is probably was his undoing. And it doesn't even make sense. He in no way had to his team probably, I would have said, if this said TJ Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts, I would have said this guy probably has the strongest draft in this room. Because his wide receivers are just insane. His running backs are really good. Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. I love the value on Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to be great this year. Lamar Jackson, I'm not going to be surprised if he finishes as the number 1 overall quarterback. But we are so far outlapping him at tight end. Now, he is crushing us at wide receiver. I don't want to make any bones about that. And you are starting 3 wide receivers every week, and he's probably going to be starting 4 wide receivers every single week. So we're going to have a hard time, even though he screwed himself so bad at tight end. This will be interesting. This is an interesting draft. I was counting him out majorly because usually when people make such egregious mistakes like this, the rest of their team isn't that strong. But he certainly did. And I think the reason why he was able to get such great value was because he specifically waited on not taking any of those top 3 quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson fell to pick 38. He was able to get a lot of these guys like Etienne, Stevenson, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith to fill out the middle of his roster. He just, again, screwed himself at tight end. Now, if screwing yourself at tight end, that might not even be a big deal. David Njoku, I like. Darren Waller is like the guy in New York, so he has outs to winning. That's going to be a fun one, though. I'll just let your opponents make the mistakes. Take the value where you can get it. I might have tried to get a little fancy with taking too many tight ends, with taking Kelsey really early, with taking Mahomes first before any of the other quarterbacks went. I didn't want to miss. I got a little scared. I didn't want to miss the top tier quarterbacks. But we're just a little weak at wide receiver. Hopefully the rest of these guys can have a good season. Again, we're banking on the Chargers. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. I'll be interested to see how that one turns out. I'm not going to say that we have the best team, but I do think we have a very strong shot. Let's see if we can get into another 3-person draft. We do have a 6-person draft starting to fill up. Oh shit, that's embarrassing. I don't have enough money in my account in order to enter that draft. Oh fuck, I should just turn off the stream now. I'm going to have to put some more money in there. Let's see if we can get a 3-person draft. Although I might have just crashed Underdog by telling them that I don't have enough money to enter a $5 draft. Wow. Oh shit. Let's see, let's wait in this 3-person draft here. If it doesn't fill out soon, maybe we just might end this early because I just embarrassed myself really badly. I made a note of that before I started. I was like, you can't do one of these $5 drafts or else you're gonna show everybody that you don't have $3 in your pocket. All right, my last $3 here. Hopefully this fills up soon. Okay, let's see it. Any of the other tips that I wrote down here? Making a stand, right? So I like to think that Austin Eckler is a better bet on having a top 1, top 2 outcome this season than Bijan Robinson. Now, the ADP on Austin Eckler has been coming up dramatically over the last couple of weeks, ever since he signed a new contract in LA. It was a lot easier to get great value on him earlier on when Bijan was going like 7, 8 ADP. Austin Eckler was going like 11, 12, 13. So me betting on Austin Eckler a lot in every draft was, I think, a really great value. Now it's becoming less so. You can still get him, like say if you're drafting from the 3 spot, you can get him a good amount of the time in your third and fourth round picks, because people just like to take a lot of these top wide receivers. Oh, another thing, when you're waiting in the queue, right? Remember to star these tight ends after Travis Kelce, because they just are so artificially depressed because of the ADP, the fact that they're being based on 12-team leagues and not 3-team leagues. We just want to make sure we have our tight ends that we're always remembering that we could possibly take them. Of course, we don't want to time out and draft Mark Andrews like in the second round or something. That would be a little cray. Okay, Christian McCaffrey, everybody knows he's my 101 in this format. Now, depending on how the first two picks go and where we end up, we might do something different. In that last draft, I took McCaffrey and Kelce. One of the reasons I don't like that, and I was saying earlier on that I was thinking about fading Kelce, is because of the problem that we ended up having later on in that draft. We only got one top 10 wide receiver, and that's not how I want to exit most of these drafts. I want to have usually like 3 of the top 10 wide receivers. That way, nobody's like lapping me at wide receiver in terms of the top tier talent, because of the fact that wide receiver is the position that you need the most of. You're going to be starting 3, sometimes 4 every single week at wide receiver. You want to make sure you have the best shots at those guys being like top 5 finishes as you can every single week, right? This is cumulative scoring. All that matters is getting the most points on your roster every single week. There's no playoffs. There's no crazy week 17 correlations, game stacks that you have to worry about. Although, one thing, this is maybe for a different video, but choosing players on your team that are in the same division that are going to play each other twice and have a good chance of those games going off and having really high scoring outcomes. So 2 teams with strong offenses that their defenses are kind of okay. So say if like I'm betting big on Baltimore this year, and we all know that the Bengals are going to be a really good team, really good offense specifically this year. If you draft a lot of Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals, you know twice this year they're going to play each other, and there's a good shot that those games go off. Now, maybe there's something to consider, like these divisional games are usually lower scoring than they otherwise could be. Okay, so we're here at the 2 spot, and while I do like Christian McCaffrey as my 101 pick, sometimes people get blinded by Kelce and they want to take a top tier wide receiver. So there is a chance that McCaffrey comes back to us. So I want to change things up a little bit. We don't want to take McCaffrey in probably every single draft, especially if there's a chance that he can fall back to us. And look at that, he did, because the guy at spot 3, roster optimization, okay, this guy's a little experienced. You could say he knows what he's doing, but we got him to give us exactly what we wanted. So we got a top 2 wide receiver and, in my opinion, the number 1 running back. I don't think that's a hot take to say Christian McCaffrey's the number 1 running back. What are we going to be looking at here? Obviously, I like Eckler. I also, okay, Eckler went, right? So now that Eckler, his ADP has been rising, people have been not as scared to take him in this 3rd round. So you used to be able to maybe push it and get him like in the 4th if you were at that 1 spot. I don't want to take Bijan Robinson here necessarily. I've already got Christian McCaffrey. I do like the value that you can get at running back later on in the draft. I just want to take another top 10 wide receiver. I got no problem with that at all. Now, we gotta have a question, right? If Bijan Robinson makes it back to us at pick 11 here, do we take him? And let's see, there's 3 wide receivers left in the top 10. I think that top 10 is the cutoff. Amon-Ra is the cutoff of guys in the wide receivers that I want to draft. Do we take Bijan Robinson? This draft seems to be wide receiver heavy. Everybody wants a lot of wide receivers. Bijan Robinson could have this monster season, but if we don't take him, there's going to be 2 picks. And so we will get, if we take Bijan, we will get at least 1 of these 3 wide receivers coming back to us. So it's not a terrible idea. Let's go for it. Because there is a good shot that Bijan Robinson finishes as a top 2 running back, maybe number 1 if he's just the greatest running back that we've like ever seen since, I don't know, Eric Dickerson in his rookie year. That it's a possibility, right? The possibility of the unknown. We don't know what Bijan Robinson's going to do. I am afraid of Atlanta, but that's baked into his price. He's falling down the board, so we're not getting bad value at pick 11. Patrick Mahomes just went off the board, so we get Devontae Adams. We get a chance to draft him. Of course, I would have taken Amon-Ra there easily as well. Do we want to be taking quarterback? If this roster optimization guy takes 2 quarterbacks, more than fine with me. I'm going to be happy to grab Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if he only takes 1, or if he doesn't take any, okay, he didn't take any. Do we think about grabbing a quarterback here? I don't think so, because the guy behind us, right, he's got 2 picks. Sometimes people go absolutely crazy and will take the top 3 quarterbacks. I'm going to bet that one of these next quarterbacks falls back to us, and I'm going to take Mark Andrews because I don't think he's going to take a quarterback. And even if he does, I don't think he's going to take two. I do think he would have taken Mark Andrews. Now, 17 is definitely early, right? Quote unquote, it's a reach for Mark Andrews. Sometimes I think the last draft we got him at pick 24, but I want to make sure I got him. And I think this guy is probably smart enough that he would have taken Mark Andrews. And perfect, we got what we wanted. Caspi took a second top three quarterback, and we were able to get Josh Allen on our team. And that is perfect because he does pair with our Stephon Diggs. We have a great stack pairing. Every week, we know that we have a great chance of those two guys blowing up for a huge game. And I'm really happy I got Mark Andrews. We didn't get Kelsey, but we got Mark Andrews, and that's what we really like. All right. We have a choice here. We got 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs. We could really go either way. Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, and Devontae Smith. I think they're in the same kind of tier. Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. I do think they're in a similar tier as well, but Tony Pollard, I do just like a little bit better. The guy behind us, he's got also 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. So I'm going to take Tony Pollard here and just see which of these next 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers even, comes to us. Not time yet to think about taking TJ Hawkinson or Devontae Smith or any of those guys. All right, he took Jalen Waddle. Chris Olave or Devontae Smith. A lot of people have been talking about how weak New Orleans' schedule is and the fact that they might be able to have a pretty strong season because they're not going to be playing a ton of really good competition. Now, that also makes me question whether or not they're going to need to be scoring like 30 points a game. But if Chris Olave can be the number 1 guy, is that better than Devontae Smith, though? I do like Devontae Smith. Let's just go for it. The Eagles are a much better team. I think there's a chance, although not a very big one, that Devontae Smith maybe could emerge to be a better wide receiver than A.J. Brown. That might be blasphemy. I don't know. Oh, 2 running backs went off the board behind us, and we still got another shot at Chris Olave. So it didn't even matter who we took. We got another top 12 wide receiver. I love the value that I'm getting on these guys. They're just falling down the board on top of me. I'm going to hope that Derrick Henry gets to me. I just like to have as many. Of course, I like to have as many top 10 running backs as I can. I mean, this is the thing about playing these 3-person best balls. You're like, oh man, I can't believe I got the top 8 running backs. Yeah, there's only so many that you can take. Of course, you're going to get really good players. All right. Derrick Henry just went off the board. We still do have T. Higgins, who I think is a guy that belongs in a tier above the next between DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel. Lamar Jackson, I think, pairs well with Josh Allen. Unfortunately, they have the same bye week. This is the thing about Josh Allen, is that you can't pair him in that 1-2 punch like I was talking about as easily because both Josh Allen and Justin Fields have a week 13 bye. So that kind of sucks. So what are we going to do? We could still take Lamar Jackson just because we could take a third quarterback. I do like the idea of taking George Kittle here. You missed your pick. Okay, well, we still got him. We got our guy. DK Metcalf. What do we need? We are thin at running back. I do like Travis Etienne. I do like Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he has a path to becoming, if something happens to David Montgomery, we know that the Detroit Lions are going to be a good offense. At least we think so anyway. Can we wait, though? Should we grab another tight end and a guy, Kyle Pitts? Let's see, Casp. Who does he have as his tight end? He doesn't have Kelsey. He's got TJ Hawkinson. Now, Dallas Goedert still is on the board, so we probably don't have to take him. Let's just take another running back. We do need them, although we have 3 very strong running backs. Let's get Travis Etienne just to fill out our room. He's a very explosive guy. He can break off these huge, long runs. I am a little bit worried about his workload in general. Okay, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow went off the board. So we got 2 guys in the queue here. Let's take the 2 guys that we got in the queue. Wait, unfortunately, I don't have back-to-back picks. What the fuck am I talking about? All right, the next guy behind us, he's only got 1 tight end. He's got roster optimization. He's got Kelsey. So you could say he probably doesn't need another tight end, although you definitely need 2 because of the bye week. And Najee Harris is sitting there on the board, so maybe there's a chance Jahmyr Gibbs falls to us, although a lot of times Jahmyr Gibbs does go before Najee Harris just because Najee Harris is, he's lost his luster. Ooh, quarterbacks flying off the board. Let's take the value that we're getting at the positions where the meat of our points are really going to come. We have a top tier talent in Josh Allen to get ourselves that QB1 season. So we're not going to be falling behind no matter how many quarterbacks these guys draft. And we're just taking the value. We're a little thin, I was thinking, in the back half of our running back room. And I still like our wide receivers. I even still like some of the wide receivers on the board here. I mean, even Najee Harris, who's not a guy I love, but he's the guy in Pittsburgh. People are a little worried about Jaylen Warren, not without good reason, but okay, the only question is, when are we going to be taking our next quarterback? Deshaun Watson, I think, is the guy. The question is, though, oh my God, CASP has 4, roster optimization has 3. We don't need to take Deshaun Watson until like the last pick of the draft. So right here, we're just going to think about who do we want? Who do we want? If we're going to be taking Deshaun Watson, let's just draft Amari Cooper. Or let's go with Najee Harris, because I think he is, I don't know how big of a tier break there is between him and Kenneth Walker, but because Amari Cooper, he's not the top guy on the board, there's a chance he falls back to us. I was wrong. He did not fall back to us. But Deebo Samuel is still there. I do think he has major spike week potential. He's a great, I was going to say wide receiver, but he also like plays running back. He's just a great player in the league. Let's take him. That's our 6th wide receiver. We also have 6 running backs. We have 3 tight ends, and we've got 2 more picks. So we really have our pick of the litter between running back and wide receiver. I'm leaning on just picking another wide receiver because, of course, you start more on a weekly basis, and our top running backs are so strong that more often than not, any of these guys that I'm going to pick here, although I do like Joe Mixon just because I think he's got a sneaky chance at having a top 5 season, he's probably not going to be making our roster too many times, especially with the depth we have at both wide receiver and tight end. We're giving ourselves a lot of chances to get some good spike weeks. Now, I just want a guy who's going to have chances of blowing up on a weekly basis. Christian Watson, of course, we saw it last year where he went absolutely crazy. It was like 8 touchdowns in 4 or 5 games or something. But we are a little bit worried about Green Bay's offense. Can Jordan Love throw the deep ball? I don't know. But we know Justin Herbert can throw the deep ball. Is Mike Williams going to be healthy? I don't really care. This is best ball after all. He's only going to get on our roster when he scores, so I'm willing to take that bet that he's going to have a couple of blow-up weeks throughout the season. I love betting on the Chargers. Last thing we need to do is make sure we are getting our second quarterback, right? They don't have the same overlapping bye week. Nope. He's got week 5. Now, we don't have any other Cleveland players that we're necessarily stacking, but that's fine with me. Deshaun Watson, I think, is a great bet. And here we are, our last pick in the draft, Deshaun Watson. I think we have an incredible team. I think I like this team even more because of the fact that we didn't spend the pick on Kelsey. Allowed us to get a couple more of those wide receivers. We were able to wait another 4 picks to get a top tier quarterback, right? We didn't draft Mahomes at 16. We got Josh Allen at 20. I think that's great value. So I might need to reconsider. I felt a little bit pressured. I've been wanting to not miss out on the top tier quarterbacks recently. So that was the reason why I felt like I had to reach for Mahomes, because you never know when 3-4 quarterbacks could go off the board right in front of you. Although being at that 2 spot, it got me a little confused because I was thinking I could take 2 in a row. You're never going to get, if there's 3 quarterbacks on the board, there's only going to be 2 picks in front of you, and you get to make your pick before either guy on either side of you gets to make their pick. So you might be able to throw a wrench in their plans. You might be able to plan a little bit, say, I know what he's not going to do. I'm going to see if I can't push like we did with Christian McCaffrey and getting him at pick 5. We got some really good value here. Josh Allen and Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I think, is majorly underrated. I think he's going to have a really good shot at being a top 5 quarterback this year. Josh Allen, of course, nothing more need be said. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Najee Harris. Really top heavy with these 2 guys. I do like having Tony Pollard as another tier 2 running back. Then Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Najee Harris, they're like the tier 3 kind of 4 guys who I don't mind filling out the back half of my running back room. 6 running backs, I'm happy with that. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, and Mike Williams. 1, 2, 3 of the top 10 guys. Okay, I don't feel like I'm falling too far behind anybody, right? Devontae Smith, Chris Olave. Okay, 2 of the next top between 10 and 15. I'm more than happy at getting both of those guys. And Deebo Samuel, Mike Williams, 2 guys that can blow up, have a couple of touchdowns on a given week. Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts. Great, love it. We have a major opportunity at even outscoring the Travis Kelce owner at this position because of the fact that each one of these guys can blow up. Mark Andrews can even have the tight end 1 season. So let's see how we compare to our other league mates. Casp. Why? Why do you need 4 quarterbacks? You can only start 1 a week. And how many times is Joe Burrow going to make this lineup? I can see what you're doing with Justin Fields, like I was talking about, the 1-2 punch earlier. I love that. But there's no reason. There's no reason to draft 4. And there's definitely no reason to draft 2 of the top 3 in Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. So hopefully that position is going to bite him in the butt somewhere. I'm thinking it's right here at running back. Now, well, he did get one of my guys in Austin Eckler. Jonathan Taylor's whatever. Derrick Henry, whatever. Tennessee, Alexander Madison, people just love drafting him. I do think Minnesota is a fraud, and they're not going to be all that great. And who knows what happens? They might sign somebody. And Aaron Jones, Green Bay, not all that great. What are they going to be? Wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle. I think that's really good. T. Higgins. Okay, so I think we're even at wide receiver between me and him. Both of our wide receiver rooms kind of profile the same. Running back, I give us a good advantage there. Quarterback, even though we only have 2 quarterbacks, and our second quarterback was like QB9 taken off the board, I think we're even with him. I think he's not outscoring us. Now, maybe a little bit because Justin Fields has that crazy rushing upside. I do think maybe he has a little bit of an advantage in terms of his weekly upside and the points that he can score. But having these 4 quarterbacks doesn't do anything for your team throughout the whole season. So he might have a little bit of an advantage, but let's see where we can get that advantage back. And I think it's at running back. He's got a little advantage at quarterback. We've got a good advantage at running back, I think. I think we're even at wide receiver, and I think we have the advantage at tight end. So I like our chances of outscoring Casp this year. Let's look at roster optimization. This guy who is an experienced drafter, highly experienced. Let's see how highly experienced you are against me in these 3-person drafts. I'm a YouTube streamer. Where's my badge? All right, quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Don't hate it with Lamar Jackson as your QB1, right? You didn't have to spend a top 20, 25 pick on him. I'm more than happy with that. And Justin Herbert as your QB2, I think is great. I think he's also underrated. But Trevor Lawrence, I don't see too many weeks of the year where he's going to be your guy. I think it's a little bit of wasted capital. Running back, Nick Chubb, I do like. Saquon Barkley, very good. Ramondre Stevenson, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins. Okay, Nick Chubb, I think, is the only guy who can have like a top 2-3 finish. Saquon, okay, maybe. The rest of these guys I do like because he's not getting anybody that I hate. All these guys I do think are kind of in a similar tier where I would like to have them on my team. But because of our top end advantage, we have the advantage over him because we have a top tier quarterback. We have the advantage over him at quarterback. So we have the advantage at quarterback. We have the advantage at running back. Let's look at wide receivers. He should be a little bit stronger than us here. Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra. All right, so he's got 4 of the top 10. Now, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, and DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, he's definitely having an advantage over us at wide receiver, although I feel like it's not too much. DeAndre Hopkins is a bit of an unknown. If he lands in a place like Tennessee or Houston, that's really going to come back to bite him in the butt. So while I was drafting him earlier in the week, I am pulling back on a little bit of that now because of the fact that if he ends up in Tennessee, I am not taking him whatsoever. And then Travis Kelce and Darren Waller is whatever. You're expecting Kelce to be taking that. So obviously, Kelce is better than any of the tight ends that we have. But because we have Mark Andrews, he's a really top tier talent, a guy who could compete with Kelce for the tight end 1. And then we also got Kittle and I can't even remember, but 3 of the top 5 guys. I think we might be able to outscore him at the tight end position, as I was mentioning earlier. So I think we have the advantage at quarterback, running back. I'll just say we're even at tight end, just to not be controversial, not saying anything too stupid that you guys can use and make me look like a fool later on at the end of the year. And wide receiver, he obviously has an advantage. So I love our chance. I think we do, dare I say, have the best chance out of this draft at coming away with the prize. Now, nobody made a huge mistake, but this guy Casp drafting 4 quarterbacks, I do think is a really big mistake. Something that it's going to be really hard to come back from if you're drafting against a guy like me or other people who are just taking the value that are there, not going crazy at quarterback, not going crazy, at tight end, not going crazy by drafting guys. You have to scroll down the queue. Don't scroll down the queue. Don't scroll down more than 2 scrolls. Okay. You don't need to be looking for these guys who are, going picks like 80 to 100 in these 12-team leagues. I do think roster optimization, I think he made a mistake by drafting a 3rd quarterback. There's not going to be many weeks of the year where that happens. So I think both of our opponents made a little bit of a mistake in their roster construction and capital allocation. I don't think we made a mistake anywhere. Although if you guys disagree with me, let me know. I'll be more than happy to defend myself in the comments and throughout the streams I'm going to be doing this offseason. That was a ton of fun. I love best ball. I love doing these 3-person best ball. You can't find this content anywhere else, as far as I know. We tried to get into a 16 draft, but I didn't have enough money. So we'll get that fixed. We'll do a couple more drafts throughout this offseason. We'll get 4-person, we'll get 6-person drafts. We might do some higher stake stuff at 3-person, but that was a lot of fun. Stay tuned for more. This is going to be fun. I can't wait until we're going to be in the swing of things. As we get around to later on in the offseason, we get to training camp. There's going to be a lot of noobs drafting in these 3-person best ball drafts. So get your practice in now. Watch my videos, and let's fry these fish when it comes time. All right. Thank you everybody for watching. I had so much fun and can't wait to do it again. I'll see you next time.